Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, done. So the agenda for the today's session is just to have an understanding of what we discussed in the previous class and the syllabus for the this particular course. And we again see, since we have talked about yesterday, the system software is completely mission dependent. We'll see how architecture is going to influence the design of system software. And of course, we'll see what type of architecture we are going to consider, because as we know, before we go start with the system software, we should know the fundamental architecture for which the system software is being designed. Thereby, we need to understand what type of hardware or what type of architecture we are going to consider. For that purpose, we have a SIC and SIC XC. We'll discuss all this within the time frame possible. So next, before we get into, let us understand quickly what could you understand in the previous class about the system software, application software. Do you have any confusion till today? If tomorrow if somebody asks you, can you identify system software for me, or can you design system software for me? Are you having a clear thought process what you should be asking the client, or what data you require from the client? When somebody asks you to develop a application software, what type of information we are going to get from them? So if that clarity is there, quickly a couple of you can let me know if that clarity is available with you, so that I can continue further. So just I wanted you to know the clear distinction between system software and application software, not from the definition perspective, but from the designer perspective. Because tomorrow you are an IT developer, when somebody asks you to develop a system software, do you have a clarity with which the question is being asked from the client? Whether they are asking a system software, whether they are asking a application software to be developed. So any quick inputs on that? Couple of you.
Yes, sir. We can distinguish between system software and application
So
software.
could you get clarity yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Yes, fine.
Yes.
Yeah. So fine. I will take it for consideration that you all aware of the clear distinction between application software and the system software. Again, to reiterate, system software, as name says, it is going to make the system operational. It may be an operating system, it might be your computer, it can be your assembler, it can be any utility that is going to be developed in general. And second, when somebody asks you about system software, you should have the underlying architecture for which or upon which the system software is going to be used. Whereas when it comes to application software, it is very, very specific to a particular given application. And so that application, once you develop, may or may not be used for some other problem, maybe of similar type. If that is the case, it is very, very specific to the given domain problem. If that is the case, we say it is a application software. And second distinction, probably, the application software dependency on machine architecture is very, very minimal. Whereas in the other case, system software dependency on machine architecture is very, very heavy, in the sense maybe 90-95% of the architecture is known to you, then only we can look at designing the system software. So having said that, let us see what type of syllabus we have for this current section. So we have 5 modules as usual. The pattern similar to all your previous courses, where we have 5 modules, where from the exam point of view also we'll have a couple of questions in each module with an internal choice. And the first module will talk about generally about what is actually mission architecture, dependency for system software, and what type of various risk and CISC, in the sense reduced instruction set computers, you might have heard, and complex instruction set computers. Because when you look at the history of computers started maybe 50-60 years back, and the beginning they were having a limited performance related activities, and as we grew with the technology, today we have a very high performance based computers with us. So this distinction is what we categorize into 2 categories. One, RISC, other one is the CISC. RISC stands for reduced instruction set computers, other one stands for complex instruction set computers. Under that, we have some 4 old models computers rather, which will be discussing from their performance perspective, or maybe from their architecture perspective. So having said that, since we are going to design a system software, maybe in terms of assemblers, compilers, macro processors, and stuff like that, we should also understand what is the architecture with which we are going to use this design, or for which architecture rather we are going to develop our design. keeping that in mind, we are going to consider a hypothetical computer. What do you mean by hypothetical computer? We'll see when we go to the SIC. But right now, what we have to see is, since we are talking about system software, we should also take some underlying hardware architecture for our discussion. Thereby, we are taking a mission called as a SIC. SIC stands for Simple Instructional Computer. That's what we will be using, like a Pentium 3, Pentium 4, Core 2 Duo. We are taking SIC because for academic purpose, to understand the basics behind an architecture with respect to system software, this system is sufficient for us. So that is the reason why we are taking a SIC, which is a hypothetical computer for our understanding of this particular course. That is precisely about the module 1. In module 1, we also start introducing about what an assembler is, the various passes that assembler undergoes, and various functionalities what a assembler is going to perform, and algorithms and data structures. This is how the module 1 precisely. Then module 2, we go in deep about the assemblers. What are the various things that one should keep in mind when somebody is given a task to you to design an assembler. Assembler, we know, is a system software which is going to translate a given assembly level language program like 8085, 8086, any assembly language program into machine language. All those fundamentals associated with the assembler will be discussed in the module 2. Then module 3 will talk about your loaders and linkers, which are precisely another set of system software, because once you prepare a program that is not sufficient, we need to load that program from your secondary memory to the main memory. That process of loading and linking will be taken care by the linkers and loaders. They are also a category of what we call system software, and we'll be discussing about their requirements and their functionalities and their working mechanism as well. Post that, we have a macro processor. You might have seen in C++ languages, there are macros like hash define and stuff like that as a part of high-level languages. How those things are going to be dealt. For that also, we have a separate system software called as a macro processor, and the same functionality related to macro processor, the algorithms, data structures associated with the macro processor, all will be discussed under the module 4. Then coming to the last module, module 5, we have compilers. We know compilers you have been using in various programming languages. How compilers are going to be used, how compilers are going to be designed rather. This is what very interesting topic we'll be discussing. And as a part of this, what we are going to have a programming. In the previous class, we talked about CO4, that is a course outcome 4, where we mentioned that some of the programs we would like to write so that you will get a feeling how a system software is being designed. So this is a module which we have targeted for that purpose, where we will be having a Lex and Act tools under Linux platform, and we will be writing a couple of programs so that you can understand how compilers really work. Just to give information to you on the functioning of a compiler. So these are the various modules we have under this course, system software. The book is only one book by name Leland L. Beck. Lot of copies are available in the library. Once you are available in the campus physically, you can take them. Otherwise, whatever the material we provide and maybe the PDFs if you have, you can just go through. And as and when required, I will be sharing the material that is relevant and required for our discussion. Till then, you need not be worried. So you should be taking only this book, Leland L. Beck, System Software, which is there for maybe say 10-20 years, which you have been using for several long times, and is a very good book as far as the system software understanding is concerned. This is precisely about the subject what we have for this system software, or maybe the syllabus what we'll be covering. Next, let us get into the actual topics. So that your topic will start from system software versus your mission architecture. So before we get into this, let us again recall the dependency of system software over the mission, or the dependency of application software on the mission. If tomorrow somebody asks you distinguish between system software and application software, you might write the definitions that differentiate, you might write example that differentiate, but core thing what we have to talk about is mission dependency. As you see here, system software is mission dependent. What do you mean by mission dependent? It depends on the underlying architecture or underlying hardware. We have seen in the previous class about the various diagrams that depict the hardware level and the intricacy with which system software need to work. If you look at the hierarchy, we have seen in the previous class, we have a hardware On top of that, we have some of the utilities. On top of that, we have a system software. On top of that, we have our programs, which are application software. Later, user is going to interact. So that typical hierarchy is what we need to remember under system software. So system software is completely mission dependent. On the other hand, if you look at application software is completely problem specific, and hence its dependency on the mission is very, very minimal, maybe not even 5%, if you want to talk about the percentage perspective. So system software is a mission dependent, application software is a mission independent. Okay. Next, of course, as we know the definition, system software supports the operation and usage of the computer system. System means the hardware per se. Whereas on the application software, it is nothing to do with a system, but it is going to use the system to solve a specific problem. So we are going to use application software as a solution for a specific problem using computer as a tool or a mechanism. Next, the examples what we have already seen, system software is nothing but your operating system, your assemblers, compilers, and stuff like that, which are going to be utility device drivers and etc. Application, yes.
The PPT is not seen.
That's what I was asking.
It's not seen. The Explorer has been seen, sir.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. Now?
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. This is what I started. Syllabus was also not visible.
No, sir.
Oh, sorry. This is what my presentation started. Just to quickly come back to you. So this is what we started, and this is the syllabus what I have projected. So probably I will share that with you if you don't have. And this is what the modules we have discussed, and this is what the textbook which we have referred. And this I am currently at this particular slide where we have differentiated between system software and application software from mission dependency point of view. And if you look at the examples, for application architect software, there are plenty of applications. Whatever the application that you use on your mobile or otherwise, there are hundreds of thousands of application software. It is very, very minimal, maybe running up to tens and hundreds, not more than that. Okay. So next. So let us look at now. Since we have identified system software dependency and mission architecture is very heavy and is more important, then let us see why it is going to be that required as far as the system software is concerned. Why mission architecture is going to have its influence on system software. We know that we all agree that system software is, as name says, is a software that is going to consider the underlying or bottom line hardware architecture of a particular machine, so that the software that we are going to develop is going to interact internally and get some information to be processed. Major examples are your operating systems, device drivers, and your compilers and stuff like that. So when a compiler or operating system need to work, and you know that operating system functionality, operating system has a very huge set of responsibility or functionalities, maybe user management to start with, program management, process management, memory management, device management. There are plenty of very core functionality. If something goes wrong with operating system, however costly your computer is, it is going to be of no use. You all have experienced that. If something goes with the system, as far as operating system is concerned, you will not be able to do anything in the system. You will be very careful in maintaining operating system. You take all the care to avoid any viruses coming into the system. So at the nutshell, you are going to give a lot of importance to make sure that your OS, maybe into Windows or Linux or Mac or whatever, iOS, Android, are working properly on your system. Simply because if something goes wrong with them, your system is going to be useless. So why do you say system is going to be useless when something happens to the operating system? Because operating system is the only one interface. If you look at the definition of operating system is an interface between the user and the hardware. That's what in loose terms we define an operating system. Operating system is defined as an interface between the user and the hardware. If something goes wrong, you cannot do anything. You can do nothing with respect to the computer hardware is concerned. So without hardware, you cannot imagine anything, because hardware is your RAM, hardware is your ROM, your secondary memory, your devices, your control, everything is revolving around your hardware. Somebody has to trigger that. The triggering mechanism is controlled by the operating system. You all agree with that. So thereby you see that for an operating system like system software, any system software for that matter, one should know the hardware with which the system software is functioning, and you as a developer, you should go further level and understand the architecture in total. For example, you are asked to develop a particular piece of system software for 8085 microprocessor or Pentium 3 microprocessor or Core 2 Duo microprocessor. Let it be any processor for that matter. Then what is your first job to be? To take a manual of that particular processor, understand from beginning to the end what are the internal structures of it, how the address modes are going to work, how many address modes are there, how many registers are there, how each register interacts, how the processing happens, how the arithmetic things are happening. There are so many information that you need to understand from the architecture point of view. It is like a big repository of information. It takes a lot of time, and once you understand, then only you can start designing and developing a software for that particular mission or for that particular processor. Since that is the requirement, we say that mission dependency for a system software is very, very heavy. So that deals precisely mission code. Mission code means you might have seen some of the assembly language programs where you say ADD, MOV, MUL, SUB. What are they? They're nothing but your commands. Like you have printf, scanf in C language, C in, C out in your high level language or C++. We have some mechanism, some codes as far as the assembly level languages are concerned. For example, if I say ADD, as the name says, it is going to add some data. If I say SUB, it is going to subtract some data. When I say MOV, it is going to move data from one place to another place. When I say HLT, we are going to halt the program from execution. Like that, every assembler, every assembly language will have its own mission code. We call that as a opcode or a mission code. So once we know the mission code, then we should know what is the internal representation, because at the end of the day, you need to convert your high level language or assembly level language into mission level language, which is zeros and ones. That is going to be your internal code representation, which you call it as a opcode for that particular system or particular processor, which will be always in your hexadecimal format. Okay. Then we have instruction formats. Instruction formats means how you are going to provide instruction. For example, I want to add 2 numbers, I will have a different instruction. I want to add 3 numbers, I will have a different instruction. I want to multiply 10 numbers, I will have a different instruction. Like that, depending upon the type of data that is going to be involved, we have different instruction formats. We'll see in detail when we go to the SIC and SIC-XC. An important thing is addressing mode and registers. These are the information which you normally get to know when you study a architecture of a computer. When somebody asks you, study the architecture of a computer, what you should be knowing? What are the registers we have in that? What are the addressing modes we have? What is the data size? For integer, how many bytes it will take? For character, how many bytes it will take? For floating point, how many bytes it will take? All those we have to see. Then memory size, total memory size of that particular processor. Then how many data formats are there? Whether I can represent a single precision floating point, or can I have a double precision double? All those are going to be part of your data formats. Then addressing modes, instruction formats. There are plenty of information that you need to know. So we have just listed some of them, and even in our discussions, we see only 5 to 7 of these inputs which we need to understand from a architecture point of view. But in general, what we have to keep in mind is, for a given architecture, we need to have a to Z information. Then only you can venture into designing system software. So having information or thorough information about the system, about that architecture or hardware is very, very important and crucial. Next, that's what we say, the dependency of your mission as far as the system software is concerned. So we highlight here that for developing any system software, understanding of mission closely from the registers to till IO is very, very important. So that's how we conclude that the requirement or the relevance of mission architecture with respect to the system software. Now, having said that, let us look at how these programs are going to be used as far as your understanding of system is concerned, or system software process is concerned. So system software differs from application software in one particular concept, called as the mission dependency. That's what we have been discussing for last couple of hours. There may be any number of differences, there may be any number of thin differences rather, but one clear difference between these two is the dependency of the mission. So based on the mission dependency, we can clearly say one is a system software, other one is the application software. So when you want to deal, so you should have the complete information about the real-time machines that we are going to use for development or design of your system software, which what we have discussed now. So now, next. Having said that, let us consider the architecture with which we are going to study in our requirement in our classes. So we will be using SIC. As I said earlier, SIC stands for Simplified or Simple Instructional Set Computer, SIC. What is this SIC? You might have never heard. Has anybody heard about this computer, SIC? Heard about this earlier?
No, sir.
You might have heard about 8085, you might have heard about 8086, you might have heard about Pentium, you might have heard about so many architectures, IA32, Motorola, but SIC is not available in the market. You can't go to a shop and say, hey, my teacher is telling about SIC, can I get an SIC computer? No, this is not available in the real market. That's why we say it is a hypothetical computer. What do you mean by hypothetical? It is just a imaginary. Why you are taking it as imaginary? Why are we not taking Pentium or whatever it is? If you take Pentium, as I said, which is a real-time processor, it takes maybe years together for us to understand. Then when do we study the subject called system software? So we cannot take the risk of taking a real-time system for a given 3 to 4 months of understanding of system software, and we may not be able to do the justice for the subject. That is the reason why we assume a small level, a simple level system wherein whatever we have discussed, registers, addressing modes, data formats, memory, instruction formats, input, output, instruction set, all those will be put into that in a simple format to understand how the system software should be visualized from SIC perspective. That's what we are going to do now. So we take SIC as a system for our understanding, maybe say for academic purposes. So in the market, you do not find a computer by name SIC. So that is the clarity what you should be having. Then why are you taking this now? We are taking because any real-time processor is going to take a lot of time to understand its architecture. So we will not be able to do justice by taking those real-time systems to understand system software, and hence we are considering a much simpler computer which is designed only from the academic understanding purpose. That is the reason why we say SIC as a hypothetical computer, which is not having the complexities of a real-time system, but still we can understand the concept of a computer and concept of a system software through this. Okay, to give clarity as far as the complexities that are involved in a computer architecture in real-time world, we have two systems. One system is SIC, which is a simpler system, and higher end version, maybe the next version of that is a SIC XE. There are two versions what we are going to consider. So SIC, if you can say it is, let's assume it as a Pentium. SIC XE maybe say Pentium 4. That difference you can perceive. Similar to that, SIC is a lower level processor, whereas SIC XE is a much better level processor compared to SIC. So two models or two versions of SIC what we are going to use, that is SIC simpler version and SIC X(E), which stands for extra equipment or a additional equipment with which we have these two. That is SIC is one version, SIC XE is another version. So this is the concept with which we are going to start our discussion in future as far as the system software is concerned. So that is for the today's session. So probably we shall conclude here. I just wanted to give a preliminary information about the mission dependency of system software and the type of system what we are going to consider. In next class, we'll take in detail what SIC is all about. So we'll discuss about SIC registers, we discuss about SIC memory, we discuss about SIC data formats, we discuss about SIC instruction formats, we discuss about SIC addressing modes, we discuss about SIC instruction set, and we discuss about SIC input and output. Totally 7 points of SIC we'll discuss. If you recall once again, we will be discussing about registers of SIC, we'll discuss about data formats of SIC, we'll discuss about the memory being used in SIC, we'll discuss about instruction formats of SIC, we'll discuss about addressing modes of SIC, we'll discuss about instruction set of SIC, and we'll discuss about input output. Maybe these words look similar for you, but as we discuss, you'll understand the clear difference between all these 7 points. So whenever we talk about an architecture in future, from now onwards in our system software, we try to understand these 7 points. What are they? Registers, data formats, instruction formats, memory, addressing modes, instruction set, and input and output. These are the 7 things what you should be knowing. Even in the examination, if somebody asks you, explain SIC architecture, you should be talking about these 7 only. They might not specifically ask you, explain about register, explain about memory, explain about data formats of SIC. They may simply say, explain about the architecture of SIC. Explain about the architecture of SIC XE. Explain about the architecture of another system, Ultra Spark, what we'll be discussing later. So whatever the architecture may be, when they talk about explain architecture, you should be talking about these 7 points. To recall again, registers, memory, data formats, instruction formats, addressing modes, instruction set, and input and output. So with this, probably we can conclude today's class, and let me have any questions if you have about this discussion today. Meanwhile, let me take the attendance as well. So as we take attendance, you can let me know if you have any questions. Yes, please. Anybody? Any questions? Yes. Asta, may I have your attendance?
Present, sir.
Yes. Abhinav?
Present, sir.
Aishwarya?
Present, sir.
Amrish?
Yes, sir.
Anu?
Present, sir.
Arbaz?
Present, sir.
Arjun?
Present, sir.
Ashok?
Yes, sir.
Vinita?
Present, sir.
Bhargavi?
Yes, sir.
Bhavisha?
Present, sir.
Chaitra?
Present, sir.
Debamalia?
Last కదా yes నా పేరు సునీల్
Diksha Manjunath?
లాస్ట్
Sunil, please mute. Sunil, please mute. Deepika LG?
Present, sir.
Deepika MB?
Present, sir.
Murali Krishna?
Present, sir.
Gangubai? Guriya Kumari?
Present, sir.
Harshit?
ప్రెజెంట్ సార్
Junjar?
Present, sir.
Kavya?
Present, sir.
Kishore? Lata?
Yes, sir.
Manisha?
Present, sir.
Manjunath?
Yes, sir.
Nayana? Nilanjan? Nishant?
ప్రెజెంట్ సార్
Nishant, yes. Pavana? Pavitra?
Present, sir.
Maithili?
Present, sir.
Priyanka?
Present, sir.
Pavan Kumar?
ప్రెజెంట్ సార్
Yes. Akash? Akash? Rajeshwari?
Present, sir.
Rakesha?
Yes, sir.
Ramya?
Present, sir.
Rashmi?
Present, sir.
Ravi Shankar?
Yes, sir.
Rizwan?
Present, sir.
Vishal,
Present, sir.
Savita,
Yes, sir.
Shruti,
Present, sir.
Sneha, Spurti,
Present, sir.
yes, Srinidhi,
Present, sir.
Srinivas,
Present, sir.
Sunil, Vaishnavi,
Present, sir.
Vinny,
Present, sir.
yes, fine. So any clarification? Yes, yes. Diksha done. Any clarification required?
Sir, Demalu Chatterjee, present, sir.
Yes, Devmalla done.